Good morning, dear girls. Now let us start a new chapter. The chapter is Constructors and Destructor. And from this chapter also you will get one 5-mark question and one 2 marks question. Okay. So constructor and destructor, these two are special member function and it used to initialize the objects and it used to destroy an object automatically. So initialize an object means, see, in a programs you have seen that, like example, frequency of an element in a number. In that program you have seen that we have initialized freq value as 0, like freq equal to 0 before we do the calculation, right? So that kind of initializing the variables can be done using this constructor member function. Okay, and after the use of that value or that data variable, we can destroy that variable from the program by using the destructor member function so that the memory can be utilized efficiently. Okay, so that is what this constructor and destructor member functions. So once again, see, it is a special member function that is used in class to initialize the objects of the class automatically. Initialize the object means nothing. See, it defines a value to the data members, so it is called as constructor. That means the initial value of the variable can be provided using a special member function that is called constructor. And after the use of that data variable or after the use of that value, that variable can be deleted from the program using the member function destructor. See, these are the member functions, special member functions that destroy an object automatically from the program. And how these member functions will be executed? Now see, a constructor is invoked or called automatically when the objects are created. That means in the main program, when we create an object, automatically this member functions will be executed. Okay, I think when you start doing the program or when I explain the program, you may understand little more clearly. Okay. Now let us see the rules or characteristics of writing a constructor function. It's very important for 5 marks. Okay. First point, a class name and constructor member function name should be same. That is, the class name and constructor name should be same. Then a constructor function should be declared in public section. So constructor member function will be declared in the public section. Then there is no return type for the constructor. See, usually all the member functions will be having a return type. Like see, void get data means we are using void. I mean that get data function is not returning any value. If suppose that function is returning a value, we should write like int get data. That means this get data function is returning a integer type value. Okay, but this constructor function is not returning any value. It is just used to initialize a data variable. Correct. That is why there is no return type for the constructor member function. Then a constructor is called automatically when the objects are created. So see, usually all the member functions will be executed using the object, like object.getData, object.display. That is what s.getData, s.display. Like that, using the object we used to call the member function for execution. Correct. But a constructor function is automatically executed when the objects are created. That means the value what we are initializing for a particular variable, that value, that process will be executed automatically when you are creating an object in the main program. Then it's not possible to refer the address of the constructor function. So we cannot find the address of the constructor member function. So these are the 5 rules for naming or constructing a member function. Now let us see syntax for defining or declaring a constructor member function. So already we know that now class name and constructor name will be same. See, class name, open flower bracket, private, and in the public section only we are declaring the constructor member function with the same name as class name. So class name and this brackets represent it's a function. Open flower bracket, close flower bracket, and close the flower bracket with a semicolon. So this is how we will declare the constructor member function. Now let us see the example. So here is the definition or declaration of constructor inside the class. So class name is number, open flower bracket, private int a. Here one variable we are declaring, only declaration we are doing here. Okay, this a, the variable we are declared with the data type integer. Now in the public section we are going to write the member like constructor member function with the same name as class name. See, number and this function, open floor bracket a equal to 10. That means this a is getting the initial value as 10 that we are writing inside this member function, and close the floor bracket. And this member function will be executed when we declare an object for the class. Understand? So in the main program, when we declare an object for this class number, automatically this constructor member function will be executed and a will get the initial value as 10. Then close the floor bracket, semicolon. This is how we will declare a member function like constructor member function inside the class. Now let us see the types of constructors. There are three types of constructors: default constructor, parameterized constructor, and copy constructor. So the first one is default constructor. A constructor function without any arguments are called default constructor or zero arguments constructor. So in this syntax you can see class, class name, open floor bracket, private, and in the public section we are declaring the default constructor that is same as class name. And here in this bracket, see here we cannot pass any arguments. That is what this constructor is known as default constructor, without any arguments or zero arguments constructor. Okay, and here open floor bracket, close floor bracket. Inside here we can initialize the variable or initialize the objects, then close the class with semicolon. So this is the syntax for default constructor. Now let us see an example program for default constructor like hash include iostream.h, hash include conio.h, and hash include iomanip.h. And we have to define the class with the keyword class number. This number is a class name. Open floor bracket, private int a. This is the variable with the data type. Then public declaration, we are declaring the default constructor with the same name as class name, that is number, and here we cannot pass any argument, that is why it is known as default constructor. And constructor is a special member function used to initialize the object automatically. So here open floor bracket a equal to 10. So this a will be like initial value of a will be given as 10. So when you create the object, automatically this member function will be called. And close the member function like default constructor we are closing here. Then void display, we are just printing the value of a. Close the display function and close the class with a semicolon. So this is how we are defining the class. Then in the void main, the main program, we are writing the class name number. Using the class name number, we are declaring two objects. So in the constructor member function means what? The constructor member function is automatically called when we create the object. So when you are creating object 1, automatically this member function will be called. So for each object created, this member function will be called. So here object 1 dot display, this will display same value like a equal to 10, and for object 2 dot display also this will print the value as a equal to 10. That means each time when I create this object, automatically this same member function will be called, or same default constructor will be called. So now let us see the features of default constructor. See, it is defined and declared with no arguments. That means see here it is defined and declared with no arguments. Arguments cannot be passed. The second point, you see, it is automatically called for every object created of that class. It is automatically called for every object created for that class. So here see two objects are created. For this two objects created, for that this member function is automatically called. And all the objects of the class are initialized to the same set of values by default constructor. That means how many objects I am creating, for all the objects same member function only. The value of the member function will be same. That is what, see, all the objects of the class are initialized to the same set of values by default constructor. In default constructor, all the objects can be initialized to same set of values. And it is not possible to initialize different objects with different values using default constructor. That means here we cannot initialize different objects with different values. That means now object 1 can get only a equal to 10 that value, and object 2 also can get the same value as a equal to 10. That is the feature of default constructor. Okay. Then next is disadvantage of default constructor. That is one disadvantage is all the objects of the class get initialized to same set of values by default constructor. Now we have seen object 1 and object 2. Both the objects are called with value a equal to 10. We cannot give different value for different objects, and default constructor cannot be overloaded. That this topic we will see later. Okay, so this is the default constructor.